Hello, welcome to part 4 of my live reading of Trapped in the Game, an NPC survival story. Let's get into it. Howdy, the blond man says in greeting. Cole looks up from his work and greets the friendly player. So, Dancing Dagger says, have you possibly come up with a quest worthy of one of your mighty weapons? The player asks, as he had asked many times over the previous days. Cole doesn't say anything. Instead, he sends a mental command through the menu. Quest name: Tomb of the King of Tempests, 5. Description: escort Cole Luna into the depths of the Tomb of the King of Corruption. Seek out the Hand of God near the Salt Flats. Reward: 500,000 XP, plus 500 reputation with Cole Luna. One rare weapon suited to the player's class. Dancing Dagger's pupils shrink as he reads the sudden quest prompt. A smile crosses his lips as he looks at Cole. Awesome, he says happily. Cole nods and says, collect your party, and let me know when you're ready to depart. Dancing Dagger doesn't waste any more time and rushes off to find his friends. Others who witnessed Dancing Dagger's excitement rush over and ask if there is a new quest. Cole merely shakes his head and continues his crafting. Alone in his thoughts, Cole considers what is to follow. Merely getting to the entrance of the dungeon will take several hours of travel. The beasts of the valley won't pose much challenge to a 5-man party, but it's necessary for Cole's safety that he be escorted to the dungeon, and even more so when he enters it. After some time, Dancing Dagger returns with 4 other players. Each member of the motley crew looks excited by the dungeon quest. As far as they are aware, this is the first dungeon found across the dozen or so populated worlds of Cosmos. Cole closes up shop, storing his items for later use. If you're ready, we should depart now. The players have no complaints and follow Cole out of the forum and into the dusty Crimson Valley. The Holy Daughter is busy praying before a statue of the Crimson God. Despite the god's chaotic evil alignment, the statue is human in form, with a blood-red aura enshrouding the stone. The Crimson God is not human, but uses the human form in the dealings with mankind. It is familiar and therefore improves its affinity with its human worshippers. While the Holy Daughter is affirming her faith, the shuffling of feet draws close. With a sigh, the Holy Daughter of the Red Sect opens her eyes and looks at the Red Priestess. Red Priestess. The woman has a look of urgency on her face. My lady, she says, Acolyte Luna has left the temple grounds with several immortals. The Holy Daughter immediately tenses. He's finally making his move, she thinks. Dispatch 3 teams of red priests to follow him. I want to know the direction he's headed in as soon as possible. Go. The priestess bows hastily and hurries to send the teams. The Holy Daughter is left alone with the statue of the Crimson God. If, she says to herself, if he has truly discovered the tombs of the 4 kings, then the legacy of the Red Sect will rise. It will be the dawn of a new age for Rune. Cole is left unaware of the happenings behind the scenes in the Red Sect. The Red Priests hadn't hindered him as he interacted with the Immortals. It could not be said that Cole had a positive opinion of the sect, but he never really put the red sect in his eyes. He aspires to much greater heights. It is true that he will accelerate the faction wars to come by releasing the locations of the dungeons, but such wars are part and parcel for multiplayer games. None of it matters to Cole. What matters is the perks he will receive for opening the dungeons. Caught up in thought, Cole doesn't mind the long trek to the salt flats. His feet plod along beside the players who are eager to keep him protected. There isn't any threat. Each player is skilled in their particular role. It's a balanced party with three damage dealers, a guardian, and a healer. Dancing Dagger is a capable leader by all rights. Charismatic and decisive. Per his name, he wields a dagger. He must not have unlocked dual wielding yet, but in his offhand he carries one of Cole's spellstones. The buff is active so long as the item is out and in range. No threat slows them, and the hours pass quickly. In all, it takes just over 3 hours for them to reach the salt flats, and another half-hour to find the imposing hand of God. "Well," Dancing Dagger says expectantly, "we're here." This is the moment he'd been anticipating since Cole had first mentioned the four kings of corruption. He hadn't known that there would be a dungeon, but the revelation truly excited him. Cole leads the way around the rocky outcropping. The terrain is rugged, but still manageable. Eventually he finds the entrance to a dark cave. The passage is tight, fitting only one person at a time. But there's no risk. Before reaching the portal to the dungeon, there won't be any enemies. Cole takes out a torch and lights it before diving into the cave. The players are cautious as they follow him, uncertain of what dangers await them. The tunnel is short and leads to a central chamber. At the center of the chamber is a single statue, a regal figure with a jeweled band on his head. The statue is pointing at a wall with its index finger. The players excitedly come forward to examine the stone statue. "Wow, it's real," someone exclaims. Another chimes in. "Yeah, sorry, Cole, but I half expected you to have made it all up." "Shut up, man. Cole's more dependable than any of the other NPCs. Dancing Dagger watches silently as Cole approaches the statue of the fallen king. The ring comes out of Cole's inventory and he places it on the statue's extended finger. With the ring joined to the statue, a hum fills the air before a whirlwind stirs it. The wall the statue points at begins to glow a variety of dark colors. The colors all swirl to create a circular portal. Dancing Dagger approaches Cole. "Are we ready?" The question has more to do with with their combat proficiency than the immediacy of entering the dungeon. Cole has a high opinion of the team just from their journey to the Salt Flats. They are competent and have relatively high levels. He nods. "We're ready." With that, Cole steps forward and into the churning portal. The rest followed suit. On the other side, they find themselves in a building made of stone. It could be a castle for all they know. They just can't see much other than the stone walls around them. The portal is at their back, open for them to escape through if need be. The sturdy wooden door before them is their only path forward. Okay, guys. Guardian, you're up front. Healer in the back. Damage, just try not to do anything stupid. Dancing Dagger does a ready check and finds everyone ready to advance. Cole stands next to the healer and waits for the players to move forward. The wooden door creaks open and a heavy aura fills the room. Debuff. Crimson Madness. Description. Units affected by Crimson Madness suffer mental damage every 15 seconds. The effect persists so long as the source remains active. The players begin taking small amounts of damage every tick, forcing the healer to begin casting small healing spells to control the rate of damage. Cole is notified of null damage with every tick of Crimson Madness. The attribute of mental resistance he gained working on demon blood inscriptions perfectly voids the mental damage. Dancing Dagger frowns and says, "Whatever is the origin of the debuff needs to die. Let's get moving." Their agenda is set. The party moves forward until they find an enemy. The enemy looks like an armored soldier with deformed growths bulging from his body. Red tentacles with suckers writhe out from the soldier's body. The mutated soldiers become aware of the party and growl inhumanly before charging forward. "Shit," the Guardian says as he shield bashes the enemy. "This guy's hella ugly." The other members of the party agree and begin unleashing their varied attacks. The mutant is powerful, but by itself falls in short order. The players pick through the body to find useful loot and continue through the corridors. Sometimes they find a lone mutant, other times the enemies come 2 or 3 at a time. Dancing Dagger's team is adept at handling the enemies, but they're being constantly hit by mental damage. "Guys," the healer says, "we've got to get the source of the debuff. I'm losing too much mana." Cole looks at the healer. He's got a scroll that could bolster the player's mana recovery, but it shouldn't be necessary just yet. Indeed, not long after complaining about his mana, the party comes across a grotesque creature. Cole recognizes it as an aberration. It's a type of homunculi made of melted flesh. There are many kinds of aberrations. This one oozes a miasma of psychic energy in the form of the Crimson Madness debuff. The party looks at the monstrosity and sees the red miasma. "This thing's got to be the source of the damn debuff," Dancing Dagger declares. "Kill it." The Guardian doesn't need much encouragement and charges the enemy. The aberration is an elite enemy and much stronger than the mutated soldiers. The thing lashes out with oozing flesh, forming spears to pierce the Guardian. Fortunately, the tank is tough and shrugs off the damage. Dancing Dagger and the other 2 damage dealers cut and blast the fleshy creature. While the others fight, the healer maintains heals on each member of the team. All the while, Cole hangs back and observes. The enemy isn't difficult and dies quickly under the combined attention of the 5-man team. The fight concludes and the team picks up the items left by the aberration. "Ooh," the healer says. "I need a few minutes to get my mana back up." Dancing Dagger nods and turns to Cole. "Any idea what we can expect from here?" Cole looks from him to the path before them. "There'll be a few more aberrations, a lieutenant and a boss." The blond man nods and consults the rest of his team. Another short break, After a short break, the team moves on. It doesn't take long for them to be affected by another Aberration's Crimson Madness debuff. But they are much more confident pushing into the enemy territory. The corridors diverge, and Cole has to tell the members the right path, avoiding traps and additional monsters. Soon they come into a circular room with a soldier standing alone at in the center. This soldier doesn't have the mutations affecting his body, but a red mist surrounds the soldier's head. Can't. I can't. Please, no. I can't do this anymore. Don't. The soldier is raving with lunacy, but his armor is pristine, and the two-handed sword in his hands is quite fearsome. The soldier notices the invading party and screams, "Go away! You die!" The soldier charges the party and begins to desperately assail it. The battle is moderately more difficult than the ones before, fitting for a lieutenant, but ultimately proving no challenge for an experienced party. My, my king, why? With those words on his lips, the soldier dies. I kind of feel bad, Dancing Dagger says. He didn't seem like he was bad. Cole shrugged. This is the resting place of a king of corruption. Anything in here needs to be put down. Don't feel bad for the dead. They were lost a long time ago. Dancing Dagger stares at Cole with an inscrutable expression. With a sigh, he says, I suppose you're right. The circular room leads to a stairway that takes the party to a grand hall. It extends for some distance before the party, with mutated soldiers standing in various formations to prevent the players from passing. At the far end of the hall, a monster resembling a landlocked squid stands on its tentacles. The abomination stands over a stone coffin. "Ooh," the Guardian says. "We have to run the gauntlet and then fight the boss? This might be tough." Dancing Dagger agrees and sends out a ready check. Everyone's ready, and so they begin to challenge the formations. Sometimes they succeed in pulling just one group of mutants, while at other times they have to deal with 2 or 3 packs at a time. The healer manages to keep the whole party up as they go from one formation to the next. Cole notices the healer's mana dip slip below a certain threshold and pulls out a beast blood inscription. Blessing of Wisdom. Description: boosts targets in combat mana recovery by 30% for 5 minutes. The scroll disintegrates as the spell affects the healer. Briefly, the healer looks at Cole fondly before turning back to the battle. The team makes steady progress and soon crosses the length of the Grand Hall. The last of the mutants die, triggering the squid-like boss to charge out and begin grasping at the players. The monster squirts out ink, an ink that somehow floats in the air as it would in water, filling the room with darkness. Its tentacles easily finding the blinded players. Cole watches from a distance as the players struggle to find the land, and land hits on the enemy. While confident that the players will succeed, Cole doesn't wish to wait for them to learn the tricks to face this enemy. Without haste, Cole pulls out a demon blood scroll of hellfire. This sort of inscription shouldn't even exist in the game, but it does. Cole is sure that The spell won't affect the friendly players, but it will fry the squid. Adjusting his location to be in range, Cole stretches out the hand with the Hellfire scroll towards the boss, then triggers the spell. Boiling green flame with a stickiness like oil hungrily eats up the ink as it washes over the players and to land full force on the body of the squid monster. A sort of scream fills the hall as the boss is deep fried while still alive. The players watch with astonishment as what little's left of the boss's body falls to the ground, the flames still eating its flesh. Fortunately for the players, as long as some of the enemy's body remains, the loot table is accessible. Dancing Dagger stares blankly at the sputtering green flames before looking at Cole with some degree of fear. Cole shows no concern for the players as he approaches the stone coffin. King of Tempests, it reads. There are other words engraved into the stone, but the dead king's not what he came for. Nor did he come for the treasure chest that spawned into the room when the boss died. The players are busy opening the chest, excited for the chance at rare loot. Instead of any of these things, Cole looks to two black candles on either corner of the grand hall. Stepping up to one, Cole reaches out and claims the candle. Then he moves to the other side and takes his prize. Turning back to the players, Cole notices Dancing Dagger's curious gaze. A slight smile touches Cole's lips as he meets the man's gaze. The candles are powerful mediums of arcane magics. He can use them to enhance his enchanting. The players might realize the value of the items, but the chances of them using the items to any effect are low at this stage of the game. While Cole is preoccupied with his plans, a system-wide announcement is spread out to all of the players of Cosmos. Achievement unlocked. First dungeon clear. Dungeon, Tomb of the King of Tempests, complete. Players, Dancing Dagger, Wreck This, John Who, Forever Healing, and Justice Sword. Achievement reward, title, Forerunner. Holy shit, someone says. We got titles. Every member of the party opens their menu and activates the title so that it shows on their nameplate in front of their name. Forerunner Dancing Dagger looks around with a gratified smile on his face. Cole notices the antics of the players and gives them a minute to celebrate. In addition to the treasure chest, a pedestal with a red orb rests in the room. Cole looks at the players for a last time before placing his hand on the orb. Space warps around him, and Cole disappears only to reappear in a stone room. He's returned to the Red Sect's temple. The day's been long, and Cole can reward the players later. Without fanfare, Cole retires to his room and wraps himself in his blanket. Sleep takes him moments later. The Holy Daughter waits for the news. The night has grown long, but she has no thought for sleep. All that matters is the reports she's been receiving ever since Cole left on his expedition. Early on, she knew he was headed in the direction of the Salt Flats. There was nothing there save the obscure hand of God. It was a natural formation. Many had been near it over the centuries, but none had ever reported anything special about it. Until now. My lady, a priest rushes over to her. It's true, it's true. The Holy Daughter feels a tension release within her. The tomb is real? She questions. The priest nods emphatically. Yes, my lady. There is a cave with a statue of one of the kings of corruption. and a portal leading to the tomb. The Holy Daughter finds herself at a loss for words. This was, without a doubt, the most significant development the Red Sect had experienced since she attained her rank. But the credit was owed entirely to a young acolyte who hadn't even been in the sect for half a year. "Prepare an escort for me," she said. "I must see this for myself." The Red Priest does as he's bid. Sometime later, as the first rays of dawn spread over the horizon, the Holy Daughter arrives at the hand of God. "This way, my lady." Soon she's escorted into a dark cave. There, a regal statue pointed to a swirling portal. Even she feels intimidated and amazed. With confidence, the Holy Daughter enters the portal. The dungeon has reset and filled with mutated soldiers and aberrations. Each monstrosity is dispatched with no more than a flick of the Holy Daughter's wrist. Despite the horrors present, the Holy Daughter feels a solemn reverence for the tomb. A foundational figure for the Red Sect was entombed here. The corruption and madness of the place was empowering the Holy Daughter was empowering, and the Holy Daughter feels stronger the deeper she goes. Then she finds the grand hall. Her eyes see the mutated soldiers and the squid-like boss, but they are as nothing before her eyes. What shakes her is the coffin, a king of corruption. The Holy Daughter strides through the masses like a blade loose from its scabbard. The boss monster falls with one blow. With reverence, she examines the coffin. King of tempests. The Crimson God has gifted the king its blessing, forever to be enshrouded in his God's divinity. The Holy Daughter sighs with satisfaction. Never in her life had she thought she'd be so close to the divine. It is one thing to pray to her God, but to be next to a true champion of the Crimson God is something else. It hardly matters that the king is dead. The divine lingers here. Her thoughts turn to the acolyte who had unwittingly brought her here. He had known of the tomb and used the immortals to unearth this secret place. Should he find the other 3 tombs, what can she do but follow? His weakness is obvious to her. He is no warrior that the sect could send to face its enemies, but he has uncanny knowledge and means. The Holy Daughter even suspects that it is not the acolyte called Luna who possesses this knowledge, but rather the weak demon inside him. Truly, there is no other explanation. The Red Sect relies on demons for most aspects of their lives, but demons are inherently cunning and dangerous. They are to be controlled. If Acolyte Luna's demon is not being controlled, it could spell doom for the sect. But the Holy Daughter, having just entered a sacred place of pilgrimage because of that demon, cannot think of any countermeasures she could enact that would allow the demon to lead her to the other 3 tombs. For now, the matter of Acolyte Luna's freedom cannot be handled recklessly. She stays for some time wrapped in her God's divine aura. Cole dutifully attends his blood magic lessons in the morning before descending the long stairway to the forum. The eyes of every player are upon him. They know of the dungeon because of the system-wide announcement. They also know that Dancing Dagger and his party had left with the NPC the day before. A few approach, seeking the same quest, but Cole waves them away. He's not gonna deal with the players until he sets up shop. When he finishes setting up his shop, the players take that as the time to approach, and they do so en masse. Cole, I'm here to help, one says. Just tell me where to go. Yeah. Yo, Cole, my friend. Do you have any new quests you want me to do? Come on, give me the quest. The voices are insistent. Never had Cole had so many friends as he does in this moment. Cole smiles enigmatically and shares the quest he'd created this morning. Quest name: A Light in the Dark. Description: Cole Luna has tasked you with entering the tomb of the King of Tempests. Retrieve one black candle from the tomb and bring it to Cole Luna. Rewards: 200,000 XP, plus 200 reputation with Cole Luna. One uncommon weapon suited to your class. The gathering explodes with voices. I'm running the tomb. Send me a message for the invite. LF3M, Tomb of the King of Tempests. Holy shit, an uncommon weapon? I know it's just one tier, but I need this upgrade. The players are aggravatingly loud, but Cole endures it. They'll be gone soon enough. Wait, a voice speaks out above the crowd. Where's the tomb located? Vacant expressions come over the faces of those gathered. Cole laughs and says, The Salt Flats, inside the hand of God. After he has finished speaking, a deluge of players exiting the forum stirs up red dust with their trampling feet. The players will find out in their own time that the dungeon only has 2 candles per clear. Friendships are bound to break in the competition to get one of the candles. Cole puts thoughts of the dungeon aside and begins crafting. He's bound to need many more weapons, with the entire faction's players assailing the tomb. While he's preoccupied, he fails to notice an approaching figure. Cole, you jerk, the pretty Wulon yells, causing him to botch an enchantment. He looks up in irritation. He's about to subtract a reputation point from the intruder when she interrupts. I can't believe you, she says. You told me you'd bring me when you went to the tomb. Why didn't you bring me? The woman is angry, but Cole had his reasons. I didn't go to the tomb you brought the proof of. I'll take you next. His answer does nothing to pacify the young woman. I didn't, or so what if you didn't go to my tomb? Why did you go to another first? I could have gotten the title. As she vents, a figure appears. Forerunner, dancing dagger. Hey Cole, what's the problem? Wulon sees his title and glares daggers at the man. Why did he bring you first? She demands. Dancing dagger scratches his cheek. I don't know. Cole finally speaks up. He found the first proof, so he went first. The answer finally silences the infuriated woman, but she's not happy. So, Dancing Dagger shifts uncomfortably. Cole, can I get the reward? Cole nods and mentally completes the quest, giving Dancing Dagger a healthy chunk of XP and reputation. But most significantly, he gives him a rare dagger. The dagger is enhanced with durability, self-sharpening, a bloodletting enchantment, advanced critical strike, and +3 dexterity. All told, it's an impressive dagger that players would kill to get their hands on. Whoa, Dancing Dagger says after taking the dagger. It has a visual effect of a dripping red aura, courtesy of the bloodletting enchantment. Man, Cole, you don't disappoint. Wulon bites her cheek as she looks at the treasure. Finally, she asks, "Well, Cole, when do we leave?" Cole shakes his head. "Not yet." "God!" Wulon yells. "This is so not fair." With that, the player stomps her way off. But before she gets far, she stops. With a deep sigh, she turns around and approaches Cole. "Give me the new quest." It is shared, and she turns away with a huff. Dancing Dagger watches her go. "Guess I got you in trouble." Cole shakes his head. "Things take time, and there's an order to things." The blond man observes Cole with an odd look in his eye. "Anyways," Dancing Dagger says, "I hear there's another quest for the dungeon." Cole nods and shares the quest. It's an inferior version of the one we did. Still, I'm trying to work on dual wielding, so your uncommon dagger is better than any other I can find." Cole nods and returns to his work. Taking the hint, the blond man walks away. It isn't long before the other members of the party approach Cole and complete their quests. The players come and go, but Cole is busy augmenting more weapons. He has a nice stockpile of every weapon available, but within a few days he'll be pushed to keep up with the demand. Of course, with the black candles the players bring him, he'll be able to accelerate and enhance the enchanting process. While working on an axe of the common grade, Cole lights one of his candles. He would etch an engraving into the weapon, then drip a small amount of melted wax into the engraving. When casting an enchantment, Cole places the candle between himself and the axe. Then, while imbuing mana into the crystal dust, he would blow the dust over the flame and the axe. This makes the potency of both his engravings and the enchantments much higher. If the weapon is uncommon, it will be similarly powerful as a rare weapon he would make without the black candle. Cleaning the weapon after it is finished takes a little more time, but the enchantments are worth it. The day progresses smoothly, and before Cole can notice the time, the first party to successfully challenge the dungeon descends the temple stairs. Only about 2/5 of the returning players are happy. These are the ones with black candles. The rest aren't too discouraged, as they had completed their first dungeon and obtained new items from the treasure chest, and whatever drops they might have gotten. Even if only 2 and 5 return to complete the quest he had given them, there are thousands of players completing the dungeon, so hundreds will be returning, with hundreds more on their way. Cole has to make extra effort to personalize the gifted weapons, but it doesn't distract him too much. The day ends only for another to take its place. Cole is far busier since the opening of the first dungeon. Some players are all business, only there to reap the rewards of their quests, while others seek clues to Cole's next move. "Cole, who are the kings of corruption?" one person asks. "Yeah, you know a lot about this stuff. I've asked the Red Priests, and none of them know anything about the other tombs. How do you know so much?" "That's a good question, Cole. Are you the avatar of the Crimson God? Fool, don't ask him that. Yeah, shut up. He might curse us. Cole looks up at the rowdy players with an exasperated expression on his face. He had he hadn't realized how annoying people would be when he first started exploiting them, but the advantages ultimately outweighed the headaches. He briefly opens the menu to review the changes in his attributes. Name: Cole Luna. Class: Engraver. Evolutionary rank: F. Strength: 10, Agility: 10, Stamina: 15, Mind: 18, Spirit: 10, Dexterity: 15, Mental Resistance: 7, Potential points: 0, Sharpen: 8, Identify weakness: 8, Steady Hand: 10, Evolution meter: 2,750,000 out of 3,500,000. His attributes and even his evolution meter are advancing at a good pace. He's probably on par with the average player in terms of stat points. This is because he started at a much lower base than they did, but now he is starting to feel more capable of surviving the trials that are to come. Cole opens the digital forums used by the players. Planet Rune is thriving with discourse between players of the various factions. As might be expected, the Red Sect players are in flame wars with every other faction. The Arclight players, in particular, hate the Red Sect players. But it's not just the Arclight players. The trade union that controls most of the seas around the habitable continent have many jealous players calling for the surrender of the hero character Cole Luna. It's unacceptable that a chaotic evil faction controls such a character, one union player typed. Agreed, came another vocal player. We should establish an alliance to destroy the Red Sect. Without the sect, the hero unit will be easier to claim. Others held different opinions. The Arclight players were more brutal. Enough talk about getting Koluna to join our faction. We just need to kill him to return balance to Rune. This is the exact sort of hostility Cole had long expected from the players, and the reason he feels his fate is balanced on the edge of a blade. His stat points are only about even with the average player, and his evolutionary rank is still lower than any player. If players like Dancing Dagger knew of his fears, they would be incredulous, particularly after demonstrating the Hellfire Scroll's overwhelming destructive power. Many among the Red Sect had already taken him for the faction boss. Some coveted what loot he might drop, but most realized that keeping him alive would be in their best interest. Cole scans through the fanatical posts by members of his faction. Many were proposing a new theory that made his jaw hang open. The Crimson God has descended, one player preached. The avatar of our Lord of Corruption merely hides behind the mask of mortal flesh. Koluna will unleash the power of the Four Kings and lead us into the promise of the Crimson Light. All hail the coming of the New Age. +1. Exactly. He's arming us so that we may bathe the world in crimson. Cole lets out a tired sigh. Why did he have to be incarnated into this ridiculous faction? As Cole stares absent-mindedly into space, a familiar barbarian approaches. Hey, Cole. Ah, hi, Goldie. The burly man looks at Cole for a moment. Why didn't you take me? Goldie doesn't seem like the kind of person to have his feelings hurt easily. But after the strained situation with Wulon, Cole can only lift his hands helplessly. It wasn't your dungeon. Goldie cocks his head to the side. Ah, well, when can I expect my turn? Cole shrugs. There's one person ahead of you. Hmm, the barbarian hums. Okay. Cole looks at the man and shares the candle quest with him. Ah, Goldie accepts the quest. I heard there are only two for each dungeon clear. It'll be a pain to clear it 3 times. Cole shrugs. You can still get the treasure chest. Yeah, I know. But I was hoping for something a little more potent. Is it true you're giving out rare weapons for clearing a dungeon for the first time? Cole nods. Well, hurry up and clear the second dungeon so we can do mine. Cole sighs and agrees. It's best to open the dungeons quickly. The players will bring him rare resources and he'll gain experience points for their quest completions. Maybe he is the faction boss. Goldie moves on and Cole continues crafting. He wonders when it was that he became a workaholic. He had worked hard in his life before, maybe even too much. But now Cole wasn't just a player doing his own thing. Players can be very toxic, and the stronger they become, the more dangerous they are. If Cole relaxes his growth, then an assassin from the Arclight Kingdom might slip a dagger into his back. Or it might just be some greedy Red Sect player who wants to claim his loot table. It's exhausting, but there's no logging out. And Cosmos is a lot bigger than the Red Sect. Right now, he doesn't have the means to escape, but he can make a way. Cole continues his work until evening. The days that follow are significantly less tiresome. The fervor to run the dungeon has mellowed, with many already turning in their candles. The uncommon weapons have become a sort of status symbol. You either have one or you don't. They might as well be artifacts for all the pride the players take in them. In the later expansions, uncommon and rare weapons might as well be common for how easy it is to get epic quality gear. But in the first expansion, gear is much harder to come by and much more brittle. That's why the base for all the weapons made by Cole is a durability engraving. It just speaks to the superior quality of his work. Cole absent-mindedly blows some dust over a black candle when a system notification appears in his vision. Class advancement, Engraver to Enchanter. Do you wish to continue? Yes or no? Dazed for a moment, Cole recovers and presses yes. Congratulations. Primary class Enchanter, secondary class Engraver, new skills, mana manipulation, essence identifier, mystical hands. The skills improve his abilities tremendously. The enchantments he will be able to imbue now will be much more potent, and the skills of both his engraver and enchanting classes would overlap in their applications. It is as though a weight Cole hadn't realized he was carrying is suddenly lifted from his shoulders. He'd brute forced his way through the advancement process. And all that time, his enchanting was only based on his advanced knowledge. He didn't have any recipes to reference. But now he can intuitively understand the intricacies of his class. It is a qualitative improvement. Cole relaxes his hands and looks around. He's ready for the next step. He scans the gathered players, his eyes looking for a certain fairy. Cole's eyes fall on the brown-haired beauty. She wears a blue dress with white highlights. Cole stands up and moves towards the player. As his every move is monitored, the players immediately note his irregular movement. "Wulan," he says when he draws close to the woman. She looks at him in surprise. She seems uncertain whether or not to treat him coldly. "It's time." His words cause a silence to fall in the crowd. Finally, comprehending his words, Wulan smiles radiantly. "I'll get my friends." With that, the woman runs off to gather her party. Satisfied, Cole returns to his table and processes another weapon. The players are awash with excitement. Another dungeon. This is awesome. Hell yeah. You think we you think if we follow them, we can sneak in when the portal opens? If we're fast enough, we could even get an achievement ahead of them. The question kicks off a flurry of opinions. Cole isn't concerned. The first dungeon clear is locked to whoever opens it. That's going to be him. And the escort quest that Cole is going to share with Wulan and her friends put them in his party. The other players can only weep for having not found his proof. It isn't long before Wulan returns with a party leaning towards spellcasters, but it still has a guardian and a healer, so it should be fine. "Hey, Cole," the fairy says without the animosity she'd been holding on to in the recent days. "These are my friends." Cole nods to the gathering and sends out a quest he'd drawn up for the occasion. Quest name: Tomb of the King of the Blazing Sun. 5. Description: escort Cole Luna into the depths of the tomb of the King of the Blazing Sun. The dungeon can be found in the cursed oasis of the Golden Desert. Rewards: 500,000 XP, plus 500 reputation with Cole Luna, one rare weapon suited for the player. A satisfied smile comes over the woman's face. "Let's go," she says earnestly. Cole nods and collects his shop. The temple's forum experiences an exodus of players this time. Parties are rapidly forming to steal the coveted first clear. Sadly for all of them, their efforts will go unsatisfied. Cole leads the march with little concern for the entourage. High above the forum, the Holy Daughter watches the mass exodus of players with confusion. Why were the immortals leaving? Instinctually, her eyes searched for Acolyte Luna in his store, but she can't find him in his usual spot. "My lady," comes an alarmed voice. What? The Holy Daughter's already guessed what the Red Priest is going to say. It's Acolyte Luna. He's left the temple grounds. The Holy Daughter feels her heart flutter. Could this be the opening of a new pilgrimage site? Her red dress flourishes as she moves to the exit. "Get my escort and have them meet me in the valley. I'm following the immortals." "Yes, my lady." The black-haired beauty moves with haste to track the movement of the many immortals. This will be the first time many of the players get to see the real hero character of the Red Sect. Wulon and Cole and Wulon's party reach their destination after several hours of transit. The blazing sun of the desert is unforgiving, but all the players need do is adjust the sensitivity of their senses to ignore the heat. Cole, on the other hand, has to experience the desert as a native NPC would. Fortunately, he knows exactly where he's going and doesn't need to wander. The Cursed Oasis is a special place in the desert. Players rarely stumble upon the spot, but when they do, they are bound to feel an eerie environment. They will begin to hear whispers just beyond the range of their perception, and the longer they stay, the louder the whispers become, until maddening screams deafen them. Truly, it isn't a good place to loiter. Cole leads Wulon's party into the oasis, and hundreds of players that hadn't gotten lost follow with high expectations. Wulon looks around as they come to the shoreline of a large pond. Okay, she says. We made it to the oasis. Where do we go from here? Cole says nothing as he walks into the water. Soon he's swimming. Seeing this, Wulon shrugs and follows him. Her party and the many other players do the same. Cole reaches the center of the pond and takes a few deep breaths. Then he dives into the murky water. The light grows dim as the light grows dim the deeper he goes until he can barely see anything. But the one thing he does see is the statue of a warrior with a bejeweled hand on her head, uh, with a bejeweled band on her head. In her hand is a double-edged sword, while her other hand is raised as if to hold something. Cole quickly draws out Wulon's proof, the shield. He secures the shield to the statue. After a moment, a purplish portal with swirling lights on its surface appears. Immediately, covetous players swim with as much speed as they can muster. The greedy bastards reach the portal before Wulon and her team can, but their haste is wasted as they simply float through the surface of the portal, failing to access the dungeon. Cole ignores the players and swims into the portal. The world shifts and Cole appears under a narrow sky. Tall mountains draw close to a trail of cobbled steps. Before he has a chance to examine it all, 5 bodies drenched in water appear beside him. As they all gasp for breath, a sense of victory passes over the players. They'd worried that others would get in ahead of them and steal the achievement of being the first to conquer the dungeon. Fortunately, their worries were unfounded. Cole looks to Wulon. Are you ready? The drenched woman nods with a firm resolve. Then she brandishes her magic wand and sends out a ready check to her party. They all affirm their readiness and start up the mountain stairs. It doesn't take long for the first challenge to hit them. A banshee's wail cuts through the air. Immediately, the players and Cole receive spiritual damage. Cole lacked soul resistance, so he receives damage like the rest of the players. It isn't an issue for the healer to keep them all topped off, and so they grit their teeth against the grating shriek and push forward. The first monster they face is a living statue. Similar to the queen that guards the portal, the living statue is a woman, dressed like an Amazon warrior. The statue attacks with heavy blows. Her spear shakes the guardian's resolve. The three magic casters unleash a torrent of spell damage upon the enemy, almost as though Wulon had planned for this. The Amazon, whose stone flesh could withstand most melee damage, succumbs to its weakness against magic. The quick victory excites the party, but the excitement fades as the banshee continues its annoying wail. The living statues continue to be steamrolled by the overpowered magic damage dealers, and even in groups they stand no chance. Before long, an elite banshee falls into their path. Its immaterial body is disintegrated under the combined assault of elemental and arcane damage dealt to it. With the death of the banshee, the team gets a reprieve from the spirit damage, and the healer is able to fill up his mana before the team pushes forward. Cole is surprised by the efficiency of the party. They aren't well balanced like Dancing Dagger's party. Wulon's team likely would have failed in the dungeon of the King of Tempests. But here, under the blazing sun, their specialization is frankly overwhelming. As they move into another Banshee's range, Cole gets a notification. Unlocked attribute. Soul Resistance 1. It's a valuable resistance attribute. Cole immediately buys 6 potential points and boosts his soul resistance. Soul Resistance 7. The truth is that he probably doesn't need it for this dungeon, but he will need it later, so he invests in the resistance. The party progresses smoothly until they find the lieutenant of the dungeon. This enemy is neither a living statue nor a banshee. Rather, it's a woman who is sobbing with her back to the party. As the party draws close, the woman stops sobbing. When the figure turns around, gaping holes where the woman's eyes should have been gaze blankly at them. The wounds look as if she had clawed her own eyes out, with ugly scratches running down her cheeks. In a moment, the seemingly blind woman charges the party. She strikes out with her fists and feet, like a monk practiced in martial arts. The guardian takes the aggro of the figure and bashes her with their shield. The damage dealers unload on the enemy while the healer pumps the guardian with healing. Cole watches from the back, unworried about the party's chances. Soon the tragic woman's corpse lies on the ground to be looted by the greedy players. The party ascends the last hurdle. The stairs leading to the summit are crowded with living stone statues. Powerful as the team is, their dependence on mana finally catches up with them in the marathon slaying to climb the steps. Cole takes out 3 scrolls for the Blessing of Wisdom spell and boosts the team's in-combat mana recovery. This boosts the team's efficiency and they pass the final step to the summit. Before them rests a familiar stone coffin. Guarding the coffin of the fallen queen, a revenant ghost with a long double-edged sword shrieks and moves to assault Wulon and her party. Shit, the fairy curses. I'm only doing 10% damage. Me too, the other damage dealers echo. Cole watches as the Revenant resets its threat meter with every other attack, preventing the Guardian from holding aggro. The boss monster starts to cut down the health of all the party members indiscriminately. It is if this continues, the party will wipe and Cole will have to start over. Recognizing the issue, Cole brings out a demon blood inscription scroll labeled Soul Shatter. It might as well be considered a forbidden spell at this point in the game, but Cole has no issue with using it. The Revenant is immune to most damage, whether magical or physical, but its one weakness is spiritual damage. Thus, Soul Shatter destroys the undead phantom's health. The Revenant collapses into a pile of broken bones and torn cloth. Wulan is breathing heavily, her eyes wide with confusion as she looks from Cole to the remains of the enemy that overwhelmed her entire party. It's obvious she didn't expect Cole would have such combat potential. Was this what an engraver was capable of? The party gathers its wits and loots the corpse before moving to the treasure chest that appeared with the death of the Revenant. The players have little interest in the coffin of the corrupted queen. The same could be said for Cole. He briefly examines the coffin before turning to an inconspicuous corner of the mountain summit. A small dust devil spins around oddly. Cole approaches the mini tornado and reaches out with his hand. The wind elemental is immaterial, but when he touches it, it registers as an item and allows Cole to deposit the elemental into his inventory. Shortly afterward, he finds the one other elemental and claims it. The players watch him curiously. Is this what this was all about for you? Wulan's question causes Cole to shrug. Largely, yes. Though there are other reasons for us to clear this tomb. Oh? The fairy perks up at the possibility of learning Cole's secrets. What reasons? Cole smiles enigmatically and moves to the departure stone, placing his hand on it and disappearing. He's not there to hear the fairy curse his name. The sun was hot in the sky while the players pursued their favorite NPC. Many got lost in the desert and died from lack of water, but many more made their way to the cursed oasis. The Holy Daughter observed the immortals with curiosity. They had no fear of death, and in her opinion that made them remarkably dumb. She knew these lands inside and out, or at least she had thought she did before Acolyte Luna had shattered her world view. But even if she didn't know about the tomb, she knew about the cursed oasis. The oasis was not a place to linger. The whispers that grew to screams would curse those affected if they didn't escape quickly enough. It shouldn't affect the immortals after they're revived, but it was a nasty curse for any who didn't take it seriously. The Holy Daughter watched the immortals dive into the pond and realized that the portal must lie within. Disregarding the incessant voices, she dove into the pond alongside the immortals and saw the familiar swirl of light and dark of the portal. She also saw the statue of the one female king of corruption. Realizing that the portal was still occupied by Acolyte Luna, as she watched immortals try unsuccessfully to enter, the Holy Daughter swam back to shore and hastily exited the oasis. She almost found it humorous how the immortals loitered in the cursed oasis. They would all suffer for their choice. My lady, there you are. A gathering of red priests approached their holy daughter. She nodded to them as she used her body's internal energy to dry her body. Is is it another tomb? One of the priests asked hesitantly. It is. Excitement spread among the priests. Should we not enter? The question was reasonable, but the holy daughter shook her head. Acolyte Luna isn't finished yet. The priests looked among themselves. My lady, what is Acolyte Luna's standing within the sect? The holy daughter frowned. He's an acolyte. An odd look came over the priest's face. My apologies, my lady, but his actions simply are not the actions of an acolyte. The holy daughter's eyes were fixed on the center of the oasis. There will be no change in his status for the time being. He has not expressed any wish to participate in the business of the sect. There is no need to act rashly. The priests cast dubious looks at one another before bowing in acceptance. Some time later, the holy daughter felt the number of immortals decrease within the oasis. She assumed that the portal was open. With haste, she dove into the water and swam into the portal. The mountain steps rose before her, and the holy daughter moved with haste, slaughtering everything that stood in her path. Once more before the stone coffin of a king of corruption, the holy daughter felt the warmth of divinity. Her power swelled within her, harmonizing with the divine energy of the crimson god. An overwhelming rush came over her mind as she steadied herself, pressure building within her. It was as though a bottleneck she hadn't realized was suppressing her simply released. A red aura emanated from her beautiful form. Were Cole there to witness, he'd recognize the elevation of her evolutionary rank from D to C. Power exuded from the Holy Daughter as a menacing aura that seemed to have a will of its own. The black-haired woman with pale white skin had a face of ecstasy as she ascended by her god's will. The following day, Cole returns to his customary place in the forum. Wulan pounces on him almost as soon as he's finished setting up shop. Cole, she says energetically, I want my new wand. Cole nods and pulls out a rare wand he'd augmented with durability, mana attunement, everfrost enchantment, fire-forged enchantment, and +3 mind. The bone-white wand has 2 elemental lights flowing around its tip, one fire and the other ice, adding dual elemental damage to damage spells. Ah! She screams in delight. It's beautiful. Cole nods and turns to his work. What? She says resentfully. After what we've been through, you're just gonna ignore me and go back to work? Cole shrugs. There's a lot for me to do. Wulan harumphs. Well, excuse me for wanting to talk. Cole hesitates for a moment before asking, What do you want to talk about? Wulan looks at him for a moment before asking, What happens after you unlock the last tomb? Cole smiles enigmatically. Then I can start. Wulan shoots daggers at him from her eyes. Don't give me that enigmatic bullshit. How are you going to escape the sect? Cole shrugs. War is coming. Wulan looks from Cole to the temple and that towers over them. Well, she says, keep me in the loop. I want to help. Okay, he says simply. Wulan departs, and Cole spends a moment thinking about the future. He wasn't joking. War is on the horizon. With the Immortals growing stronger every day, there's going to be a call to direct their violence, and that direction is at the other major factions. Cole looks over his shoulder to a figure he'd been largely ignoring in the haste to conquer the dungeons. Jake, come over here. The boy looks up from the null element crystal he's busy engraving. Despite the lack of mentorship, the boy has been as diligent as Cole himself, and Cole has kept him supplied with both crystals and pristine stones. Do you think you're ready for the next step? Cole asks. Jake Snow nods his head. Okay, then you'll start on your inscription training from now on. Cole pulls a table and chair from his inventory and sets them up behind his shop. Here's enough vellum and dragonfly ink for you to get started. Cole gives the boy several stacks of raw materials and then pulls out a simple healing scroll. This will be your first inscription. Don't forget what you've learned about spell structure. The boy silently nods his head and sits at the table. The boy has demonstrated a high degree of discipline over the past weeks. He doesn't go out on quests or hunt beasts. All he's done is what Cole tells him to do, and he does it without complaint. In a way, Cole feels sad for the kid. He doesn't have any friends and only interacts with an NPC. Still, for all his efforts, the boy has become relatively highly skilled in engraving. Cole doubts any of the engravers who used his class change manual can compare with Jake Snow's talent. Having set the boy up, Cole turns to his own business. The other players from Wulon's party approach him to get their rewards and ask if he has a quest to collect the wind elementals from the tomb. Cole distributes the quest he drew up. Quest name: Air from on High. Description: acquire one wind elemental from the tomb of the King of the Blazing Sun and bring it to Kol Luna. Rewards: 200,000 XP, plus 200 reputation with Kol Luna. One uncommon weapon suited to the player. With the new quest available, players come in droves to get prepared for the new dungeon. Many buy spellstones, dragonfly ink scrolls, and spell crystals he recently put on the market. Despite all the new quests he's implemented, players still run the basics. The pristine stones, dragonflies, beast blood, and crystals from the time-lost grotto are constantly resupplied. The black candles and now the wind elementals will be resupplied. The dungeon quests are repeatable, but they don't provide the uncommon weapon on repeated turn-in. Cole knows that there are other quest givers, but he also knows that none of the other NPCs are a mobile quest hub like he is. He takes a certain degree of pride in this distinction. Absent-mindedly, Cole opens the digital forums and looks for news on his second dungeon. Ticket: calling for GM to delete NPC Kol Luna. He's breaking the game. +1. I agree with OP. The Red Sect's too powerful. Where are our dungeons? Where's our hero character? The thread devolves into a flame war, with the Red Sect players defending Cole while the others want him dead. Honestly, Cole thinks, It is rather odd that the game moderators have remained silent on the subject of Cole's game changing NPC behavior. But Cosmos is a game that doesn't rely on human GMs. The quantum computer's artificial intelligence operates silently in the background. Cole wonders if the AI has already recognized him as an anomaly. Perhaps it's even the reason Cole has transmigrated in both time and space. Perhaps he will never get an answer. For now, though, Cole has a purpose. With all the quests he's completing, the XP he's receiving has reached a threshold for him to advance. The players start at the evolutionary rank E, whereas Cole started at the lowest G, and he's currently in F rank, but now he has the XP to advance. As the day ends, Cole retires to his room and looks at the menu. Evolution meter, 3,500,000 out of 3,500,000. Terrestrial human, 3. As soon as he accepts the completion of the meter, a terrible pain stirs in his brain. The headache grows more intense, and the pain spreads to his chest. His heart beats erratically, and he feels like he's having a heart attack. Soon his bones creak and extend, the muscles tighten and threaten to tear as his body grows taller and his shoulders become broader. If Cole had a mirror to look into, he might recognize himself as having grown moderately more attractive. But with the pain of his transformation, there's little concern for such vanities. As his blood cools, the pain abates. Despite himself, tears sting his eyes. The evolution was not easy. Lying exhausted on the floor of his room, Cole breathes heavily. He's done it. He's advanced. Evolutionary rank E. Attribute modifier times 1.25. It may not seem like much this early in the game, but the modifier represents a powerful transformation in his abilities. Of course, as a non-combat class, his power growth is more obscure. Cole rolls onto his side and falls asleep. The following day, Cole tends to his craft. The players, as per usual, are a rowdy bunch. The power players eagerly run to complete their lower level quests, while the veteran players discuss their dungeon crawls. The player forums are filled with strategies to complete the two tombs in the most efficient manner possible. Class composition and attribute values are calculated to determine who should venture into the dungeons. But still, many players throw themselves into the tombs unprepared for the challenges within. Cole observes it all as he prepares hundreds of weapons for those among the many thousands of players who get him his crafted materials. The wind elementals that the players bring him are put to good use in his enchanting. They can either reinforce other elements of the enchantments or provide the wind element to the weapon, creating gale force winds that can cut from a distance. The players eagerly compare their weapons, and many people look upon the 10 players with rare weapons, greed in their eyes. Player versus player activities are possible in Cosmos, but to kill someone of the same faction marks a person with the mark of the Slayer. By becoming a Slayer, they become a hostile character whom every player can kill with impunity. Suffice it to say, the risks don't balance with the rewards. The loot table of the chosen victim isn't even guaranteed to drop the desired item. This is also the main reason the players haven't attacked Cole. Without anywhere to run to, it would be foolish to offend the Red Sect by killing him. Still, Cole can feel the malicious eyes of many players evaluating their chances of killing him. It's also obvious to him that the players of the Arclight and Trade Union have sent spies into his midst. Assassins are gathering, and Cole doesn't know what his chances of dealing with them are. Caught in his reverie, Cole doesn't notice the approach of the towering barbarian until the man is standing over him. Goldie rests a battle axe on his shoulder and looks down on Cole with a patient expression. Looking up, Cole greets the man. "Morning, Goldie." The large man nods. "Morning." Cole slaps his hands together, dispersing the crystal dust from them. "So," he says, "I'm assuming you just can't wait any longer." Goldie gestures over his shoulder to a motley crew of 4 players. "I see," Cole says. "Okay, let me gather my things." Cole collects his shop, leaving the table and chair for his apprentice to silently continue his inscription practice. The boy looks up briefly before turning back to his engraving. The movements of Cole and the 5 players draw the attention of the masses, and many follow them out of the forum, though not as many as with the previous dungeon. Without the hope to challenge the dungeon for its first clear, the players aren't quite so excited. But while the players aren't overflowing with energy, one figure is exhilarated to see a 3rd tomb unlocked. The Holy Daughter doesn't even wait for her priests as she descends the stairway in haste. A number of the players recognize the beautiful woman in the red dress from the previous tomb, but while they know her to be an NPC, they don't know her status. A few optimistic players approach her seeking quests. The Holy Daughter doesn't even spend a moment's thought on the hopeful immortals. She has to catch up with the departing acolyte Luna. Cole, for his part, leads the party to a region infested with undead. The red dust of the valley is streaked with gray, and even the sky is consumed by a gloomy darkness that doesn't fit the time of day. Undead gather in dense clusters and present a unified front to bar the players from entry. But Cole is unconcerned. Even without the army of players eager to kill something, Goldie's party would have been sufficient to cut through the horde of zombies and skeletons. Cole guides them to a hidden cairn. The mound has a squared-off entrance that he and the players enter. The structure of the cairn is plain, and before long Cole finds the central room. A noble statue with a humble crown stands at the center. A brass gong hangs from his hand while the other is outstretched. Cole decisively strikes the gong and places the drumstick in the statue's other hand. He's grown accustomed to the process and dives into the appearing portal. Goldie smiles a vicious smile at his team and walks into the portal. Soon they all appear in a dark and smelly tunnel. By this point, Cole is accustomed to the process. The four tombs each have their own set of enemies, but they are predictable in their layout. More advanced dungeons are individualized, but the tombs of the four kings are dungeons found in a starting area. The fact that it took so long for players to learn of their secret locations did nothing to boost the difficulty and variety of the dungeons. Cole ignores the process of clearing the dungeon and reads through the player forums with a somewhat bored expression. Calling on all Arclight players, one post starts. We have a champion of our own, the illustrious commander of the Arclight 5th Infantry Unit, Michael Hughes. The army is giving out faction quests like hotcakes. Right now, they're limited to resource acquisition for the coming campaign against the Red Sect. After the opening post, a wide array of posts follows. Seriously? We finally have our own hero character? This is exactly what I needed. Question, one person queries. Does this mean we will have some dungeons open up in Arclight? The question stirs up a fanatical enthusiasm within the Arclight community. Sadly for them, Cole thinks, the three hidden dungeons of Arclight weren't discovered until late in the first expansion. Unless Cole set off a chain of events unknown to him, it was unlikely for the Arclight players to find their dungeons before the faction war took over the continent. And even if they did, they wouldn't have an NPC like him to distribute valuable items so easily. Caught up in his thoughts, Cole doesn't notice Goldie's team dispatch the tragic figure of the dungeon lieutenant. The, the gauntlet is steamrolled by the players, and Cole doesn't stand on ceremony to let the players combat the Frankenstein like patchwork abomination of stitched and mismatched skin. Instead, he simply pulls out a Hellfire scroll and incinerates the boss. Cole looks at him with mild alarm before turning his focus to the corpse of the treasure chest that spawned into the room. Cole briefly looks at the fallen king's coffin before finding a corner with glowing green mold growing in it. Cole scratches it off the wall and into a vial before stowing the mold and finding its pair. Goldie was well aware of Cole's collecting habits in the dungeons, so he merely mentally marks the spot to find the item should he challenge the dungeon again. Cole leaves without fanfare, and as there is daylight out, reopens his shop. Goldie and his team would later complete their quests and each receive their enchanted rare weapons. The Holy Daughter, for her part, followed behind Acolyte Luna with a healthy distance between them. Once more she made a pilgrimage to a mythical king of corruption. The last pilgrimage had brought her to a new evolutionary level, a growth she didn't expect for at least another decade, and yet it had been as simple as standing in the company of the venerated kings, absorbing the divinity of the Crimson God. She followed the pack of players until they found the cairn, but remained outside when she sensed Acolyte Luna's disappearance. Random players approached from time to time. Some foolish male players even tried hitting on her. It took some effort on her part not to liquefy the arrogant immortals on the spot. But the players quickly ceased their harassment as their reputation with the Red Sect started to fall afterward. It didn't take long for the dungeon to be conquered. The players started to disappear within the cairn, and the Holy Daughter knew she could proceed. After passing through the portal, she felt as though she were in a dream. Humbled by the journey, she made her way to the final resting place of the fallen king of corruption. She felt as if she were wrapped snugly in a warm blanket of her god's divine aura. It brought a pleased smile to her lips. Cole, for his part, Cole, for his part, is almost done with the dungeons. The final one is owed to the elusive Shadow Master. The man comes and goes silently, never even asking when they will depart. This allows Cole to take time for both his work and the mentorship of Jake Snow. No, Jake, he says. You have to start with the magic circle to contain the energy you're cultivating in the inscription. Only after the circle is formed can you create doorways for the magic to pass through. Look here. Cole draws his inscription within a circle and then opens a doorway for the mana to flow through other elements of the engraving. Also, the four directions north, south, east, west, and right, or north, south, east, and west, are affiliated with holy magic, unholy magic, psychic magic, and elemental magic. Always be aware of this when drawing out an inscription with a specific magic affinity. The boy nods his understanding and applies the dragonfly ink as directed. Other engravers come by on occasion and look fondly on the boy. Hey, Jake, a pretty older sister type, comes up and pats the kid on the head. Cole's not treating you unfairly, is he? The boy shakes his head. No. The sisterly young woman looks to him conspiratorially. Can I steal you for a moment? I was hoping to get some pointers on an inscription I'm working on. The young boy has become recognized as the number 2 engraver in the sect. A lot of the engravers find him to be easier to coax into assisting them than his mentor. Cole is only too happy to not have his pseudo students begging for tutelage. All he has to say is that he already has an apprentice. Jake Snow nods his head and obediently to the woman. She pulls out a vellum and explains her issue. Cole observes passively, with some level of pride in how far the boy has advanced in such a short time. While he's caught up watching the pair, another young woman comes bounding forward. Wulan has lost all of the hostility she'd held for not getting the first ever dungeon clear after she received her new wand. Hey Cole, what you doing? Cole looked at the fairy with a bored expression. Just taking a break. Wulan scoffs. You taking a break? I don't believe it. Cole shrugs. What's up? The woman had a glint in her eye. I hear there's going to be an event soon. Cole nods. He'd been hearing the same thing, and it matched his memory. In a dark corner of the temple stands an ancient teleportation array. It's a widely guarded secret that the players are, as yet, unaware. It's a highly guarded secret that the players are unaware of it so far. So soon, a series of conquest sites will be opened for players to venture to through the array. Each conquest point holds strategic and logistical value for the Red Sect, but the same can also be said for the other major factions. The faction wars are about to paint the world red with the blood of many immortals, as well as the blood of many NPCs that will be mobilized for the war effort. It will also be Cole's opportunity to flee from the Red Sect if he so chooses. But he's starting to believe that the Red Sect players will have the advantage in the wars to come. So, departing at this juncture might not be as advantageous as he once thought. Wulon looks at him for a long moment. Do you know anything about the event? Cole smiles lightly. I know more than you can imagine. The fairy puts on a frowning face before huffing. Fine, keep your secrets. I'll find them out in time anyways. Cole can't help but ask, are you so sure? She rolls her eyes. You're easier to read than you think, Cole. Why else would you be arming us with so many weapons if you weren't preparing us for war? Cole shrugs. He'd already confirmed for her that war was on the horizon, and it was even less of a secret that the Arclight faction had a hero character, Commander Hughes. The only thing the players don't know is how they'll get to the battlefield. In some of the technological worlds, great airships would ferry the players around the world. But in Rune, a magic world, teleportation was a common means of travel. Depending on the success of the campaign, more or fewer travel nodes will unlock. While Cole is busy thinking of the logistics of moving around Rune, Wulon brings him back to the world. So, Cole, she says, when will you start enchanting armor? He had been considering the very subject for some time, and it will be the next step after he completes the Four Kings dungeon crawl. Already, about a third of the Red Sect players had an uncommon weapon. Before long, it will reach half. The immortals of the sect will have a statistical, if not significant, advantage over the other factions, but it won't be overwhelming. What the players need is a wide array of powerful armor. Other quest givers provide some equipment as rewards, but those items are almost without exception common grade. Cole shakes his head. Not yet. A knowing smile claims the woman's face before she says, well, get on it. I need a new dress. Cole waves her away and goes about his business. Before very long, a silent shadow approaches. The elusive Shadow Master appears before Cole. The man awaits the the man waits silently for Cole to notice him. Looking up, the enchanter sighs. It's time, he guesses. Do you have a team? Shadow Master shifts uncomfortably. Cole raises an eyebrow. Do you have any friends to invite? Shadow Master shakes his head. With a sigh, Cole looks across the forum. His eyes find Wulon and Dancing Dagger running around doing their own thing. Go ask the woman in the blue and white dress and the blond man over there if they'll join you. Send them over to me. Shadowmaster nods and moves deliberately toward the other players. It doesn't take long for the three players to gather before Cole. So, Dancing Dagger says with some enthusiasm, we're doing this again. I can get another rare dagger, right? Cole distributes the dungeon opening quest, a rare weapon listed in the quest rewards. Dancing Dagger smiles broadly. Awesome. Don't get me wrong, Cole. This common dagger is nice for offhand weapons, but it lacks the elegant violence of the bloodletter. Wulon shrugs. I've already got a wand, so this is more for fun for me. Cole looks at her for a moment before saying, I'll give you an offhand power orb. The woman stiffens and suddenly seems much more excited about the opportunity. Shadowmaster says nothing, his face obscured by a bandana. Only penetrating eyes show his expectation. We'll need a tank and a healer. The players nod and decide to call up Dancing Dagger's friends. The party forms and Cole bids his farewell to Jake before the party leaves the forum and marches across the valley to the lycanthrope den where the final tomb rests. The Holy Daughter had been observing Acolyte Luna constantly since returning from the Third King's tomb. When she sees Cole gather his shop ahead of schedule after gathering a handful of immortals, she knows it's time to once more. In haste, she descends. Were any player able to track her moving at such high speeds, they'd think she was flying. Of course, she isn't the only one in pursuit of the departing group. Players eager to learn the location of another dungeon follow with high expectations. The process is essentially a repeat of the prior 3 dungeons. Place the pen in the pocket of the statue's shirt, enter the portal, clear trash, dispatch the tragic lieutenant, fight through a gauntlet of trash before Cole dispatches the boss with a forbidden scroll. While Shadowmaster and his party check the spoils of their victory, Cole moves to the back of the tomb. Seemingly delicate spider silk can be found in 2 places. With the new crafting items Cole has added to his arsenal, in a moment he's teleported back to the Red Sect Temple. When the dungeon is opened, the Holy Daughter enters the portal and casually walks through the tomb until she once more stands in the presence of a king of corruption. This time, as she feels the divinity of her god, a pain surges in her eyes. Wisps of red tendrils form in the air and burrow into her aching eyes. After the process mercifully concludes, the Holy Daughter opens her eyes, and a seed of red light gleams in the depths of her pupils. The blessing of the Crimson God fills her with a sense of longing, a longing that is not entirely her own. She fanatically desires to sacrifice the blood and souls of uncountable numbers of beings to her God. A subtle laugh fills the hall of the Fourth King. The laughter builds with a sharp disconnect from sanity. Cole is left unaware of the catastrophe he's unleashed upon Planet Rune. But even if he were to know of it, it wouldn't cause him to change his course. Wulon finds him as soon as he returns to his place in the forum. Cole, I'd like my reward now. He nods and triggers the quest completion, assigning a power orb that optimizes mana recovery and spell amplification to the young woman's reward. Ecstatic, Wulon pulls out her bone white wand and the dark purple orb. As a magic caster, these two rare weapons make her perhaps the most dangerous player in the game. Second in terms of damage potential is Dancing Dagger, with two daggers that seem to drip with illusory blood. Shadowmaster acquires a rare longsword with enchantments for durability, self-sharpening, silence, telekinetic manipulation, and +3 strength. The quiet figure's short sword has a pale white glow signifying its enchantment. Cole congratulates the players on their success and offers the subsequent quest for their quest log. The trio departs to perform their tasks, and Cole is left to deal with the odd player seeking quests or items from his store. With a look of ecstasy on her face, the Holy Daughter returns to the temple via the teleportation orb. My lady, a priest says, eyes widening, you've returned. The Holy Daughter nods. Her expression is an unusual smile. It almost looks friendly, but the light that gleams in her eyes seems predatory. It causes the Red Priest to pale with fear. Go, the Holy Daughter says. Gather a dozen or so immortals and bring them to the sacrificial chamber. The priest feels cold sweat drip down his back and hurries off to perform his task. The Holy Daughter makes her way to the chamber and waits, her eyes ever on the human form statue of her god. Soon a rabble of immortals walks into the chamber with expectant faces. This was the first time the priests had actively sought to bring the players into the secret belly of the temple. The smiles freeze on their faces as they see the monstrosity of the statue that fills the space. Dried blood from many thousands of victims has dried on the white stone statue. Some stains are fresher than others. The players look from the statue to the black-haired woman to the sweating priests who secure the wide doors behind them. What's going on here? Someone asks with alarm. The Holy Daughter smiles widely. It is time for us to honor the Crimson God. The players start to sweat. A player stumbles for words. I forgot something. I'll just head back and get it. When the player finds the door sealed shut, panic starts to set in over the players. What are you complaining about? A muscular male player questions. We're part of the Red Sect. You should have expected something like this from a chaotic evil organization. The muscular player steps forward nonchalantly. I offer my life to the Crimson God. The Holy Daughter smiles fondly at the immortal. A moment later, she slits his throat and pushes his body into a trough situated before the statue. The players wince at the grotesque nature of the human sacrifice, but they manage to face their inevitable death with some courage, though none as confidently as the muscle-bound player. After the death of the players, the trough is filled with immortal blood. The Holy Daughter takes a tool and dips it in the blood and begins splashing her god's effigy with the blood. As she continues, a red mist emanates from the statue. The holy daughter sighs with contentment as she continues her work. What the fuck? Comes a resounding cry from the temple. Several other voices wail in turmoil. I lost 10 fucking attribute points. The hell is this? It doesn't take long for the dozen or so players to reach the forum and spread the word of the brutal event that they'd been part of. Seriously? You lost 10 attribute points? That's insane. I know. That's a week's worth of effort all taken away. Did you at least get anything nice? One of the sacrificed players sighs. Just some token XP and reputation with the sect. Not nearly enough to make it worth it. The news of the evil ceremony causes the players to rethink their allegiance to the Red Sect. They may have joined a chaotic evil organization, but taking away a player's attribute points is an evil too cruel to even imagine. Cole listens as the players complain and discuss mutiny. Any rebellion would only give the Holy Daughter more souls to sacrifice, and she was likely going to want many more. The best chance for the players of the Red Sect was to go to war and claim POWs to offer up for sacrifice instead. Cole isn't afraid that the Holy Daughter will use acolytes like him, because the immortals are far more expendable. But when there are no willing sacrifices, the priests will choose sacrifices. While the players realize that the honeymoon phase of their relationship with the sect has ended, Cole is busy buying items from the vendors. As Wulon had requested, Cole gathers a variety of armor types and stows them in his inventory. Each armor type has its limitations, like a cloth robe can't store any engravings. At the same time, the cloth was more conducive to enchanting energies than plate armor. The players take note of his new purchases, and a number of them can be seen licking their lips in avarice. Cole doesn't mind. With the wars about to begin, Cole predicts that the Red Sect is going to face a dire challenge. Not only were they considered evil by the other civilizations, but the players of other factions already feel animosity against the faction that unlocked 4 dungeons in short order. If Cole isn't careful, he could be caught up in the destruction of the Red Sect. Honestly, he thinks, it would probably be for the best if the sect were destroyed. But he needs to have an out before that happens. Hey Cole, a random player approaches him. Can you tell me anything about the blood sacrifice and the woman in the red dress? Cole looks at the young man for a moment. I recommend you don't loiter in the temple. She won't always be asking for volunteers. The player gulps and looks at the other players hanging out in the forum. Let me get all your quests, Cole, and thanks for the warning. Cole shares the quests with the players before watching the young man hastily depart from the temple grounds. Other players seek him out, too, and an exodus happens. Fortunately, the players have much to do. While the dungeons can't often provide better items than what Cole gives them, they can still get armor and unique items there. And the XP is exceptional in the dungeons for parties that aren't complete garbage. Cole takes out a piece of chest armor with the black candles, wind elementals, fluorescent moss, and spider silk. In addition to his already varied null element crystal dust, Cole has reached the limit of what is possible for an enchanter in the starting zone, and no other enchanter has the limitless supply of player harvested crafting items. Cole begins engraving sigils into the chest piece. His hands are deft and deliberate. He thinks about how he'd started with a crude stone chisel in the dungeon cell that became his room. It had been a couple of months since that moment, and he had advanced tremendously. The engraving and enchanting results in an uncommon piece, but Cole isn't discouraged. Even if he only had a 2% chance of creating a rare item out of the hundreds of pieces he was to make, he'd get a handful of rares. The days that follow are predictable. I'm going to call it here for tonight. Thank you for listening. I'll continue tomorrow, probably. Thanks for listening.